What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Bain Break It Down Forex. It's your boy Big Bain in this thing, and you guys guessed it, another week, another opportunity for us to make some money in the Forex market. So let's get right to it, guys. All right, boom. Here over on the dollar, guys, we broke the high, made the new high, pulled down to our point of interest, but we consolidated for a long time. During this consolidation, guys, we built up or engineered liquidity, but below these lows, we just swept those lows and tapped into demand last week. Therefore, just like last week, I still expected the dollar to rise, which it did do, right? From last week, it did rise up, but then it consolidated or turned around within the consolidation at the end of the week and ended off sweeping liquidity, tapping into demand. So now we should definitely get the dollar to take off, grabbing liquidity above the consolidation, aiming to go and take out the high. All right, guys, so I'm bullish on the dollar. All right, over to the JPY. JPY also did the same thing, broke the high, made the new high, pulled back to our point of interest, mainly within this huge fair value gap. But since then, it consolidated, right? It did not rise to go and take out that high. All right, it's been consolidating, again, building liquidity behind this trend line like this. And obviously, it swept that liquidity. And once again, it's starting to build up because it got deeper into our point of interest, which is this demand area. And since then, it is, started to make higher lows, right? And now it just made a higher high, all right, in this bit of structure that we see. So there's a huge possibility that we're going to get a push down to possibly sweep liquidity behind this trend line before we actually take off on the JPY. So basically expect the JPY to drop first, right, for liquidity hunt, all right, before it rises, all right? So that's very important that we keep that in order, right? The drop most likely will happen before the major rise, all right? So initially bearish on JPY index, but after that, guys, we should expect the sweep, okay? And then the rise to the top on the JPY, all right? Moving over to odd dollar, all right? Again, dollar should be bullish, therefore odd dollar should fall. We broke the low here, right? This low, we broke it here, made the new low, pull back to our key point of interest, guys. Again, built up liquidity with this double top, or these equal highs, rather. Let me say it correctly, all right? And from those equal highs, liquidity set behind that. So as we attempted to push down, we went and swept that liquidity. So now, guys, we should absolutely get the drop on odd dollar. I'm bearish, all right? Moving over to euro dollar. Same exact scenario, guys. Here was the low, broke the low, pull back all the way to our supply area, guys. All of this was engineered liquidity that just got swept, as you can see here. And so hence, this is our short position on Euro USD. We're looking to catch over 321 pips to the downside. Don't miss out, guys. Everything that needed to happen has happened. So now it's time to rock and roll. These are the points and the periods where people get paid in Forex because they understand when the trade is ready to do what it needs to do. And again, liquidity being swept above this, what we would call a rising wedge, okay, here. All right. So swept liquidity there. Now the liquidity to the downside has yet to be swept. This is why we're, looking at the probability, right, to the downside higher, than the probability to the upside, because everything that needed to happen to the upside has happened, all right, in the grand scheme of what this structure is telling us, right? Again, market structure comes first, right? Then, or the trend, and then market structure, right? And then understanding the phases of that cycle when we're breaking lows and breaking highs. Again, if you guys really want to get this stuff, down pat to where you really understand it like that, right? Come get with me, all right? Forex@Bain.com, and the rest will be history, all right? But bearish on Euro USD, all right? Over to pound dollar, same exact thing, guys, right? But again, pound is a little different. But regardless, we engineered this liquidity with these equal highs. We just swept it. And now, we're going to go and take care of business to the downside. My team is in the sell. I'm bearish on pound dollar. Huge pips. By the way, 350, probably 400, as we do have news all next week. Well, not for Monday and Tuesday. I think just for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. I believe we're back at CPI and PPI. So again, they should be movers of the dollar. And, we'll take advantage of that with the majors as they are all prime time to drop. All right. Moving over to New Zealand dollar. Same exact thing, guys. Broke the low, made the new low. All of this pulling back to our supply area. We just swept this high that was engineered liquidity. All right. We swept that, tapped right into supply. It's time for New Zealand dollar to die and to drop down, getting us roughly over 100 pips to this swing low that it created with liquidity sitting behind the trend line. Guys, I am bearish on New Zealand dollar, and I suggest that you guys take that same direction. All right. But moving over to dollar CAD, all right, we broke the high right here, made a new high. All this was the pullback to our key point of interest, which was that demand area. Right from that demand area, we started to push up. So here was the run phase. Here was the pullback phase. So now we're expecting another run to the upside to break above this high. So guys, when we look at this, right, we got our change of character here from down to up. Okay, broke this high, made this new high, did a little engineering of liquidity with the trend line here. You can't see it too well, but if I go to a lower time frame, this would be more defined, where there's a bit of a trend line, just like about somewhere like this. All right. So as we rose up, building or engineering this liquidity, then we sweep it, right? We sweep it all the way down to the imbalance that happened before the break. Guys, I'm telling you, taking candy from a baby when you understand what you need to understand. Okay. So now with that happening, we get it followed by a massive bullish candle to the upside. All right, guys. Now, we ran into a little bit of a, supply area, resistance area. Okay. But looking at this from a lower time frame, like the 2 hour, you can start to see that we actually did break above this high. So the cycle begins all over again. We broke the high. We're going to make a new high, which we've done. And now we're already pulling back to kind of tap into this demand area to possibly continue rising. All right, guys, I'm bullish on the dollar CAD, looking to make over 100 pips on that. All right, moving over to dollar CHF. Let's get back right on the higher time frame. All right, and whoop, there it is, guys. You can see that I am expecting a bit of a push down, right, on the dollar, on the dollar CHF before it rises, guys. But we can get the rise from where we are right now. So there's just, a situation where we may want to have multiple positions, all right, in terms of like a buy limit order here, all right, at that level. Okay, with your stop either behind the first demand or the second demand or the swing low. It is your choice. All right, it's what you feel comfortable with. So I'll go with the first one. And then here is my buy limit down at that second demand area, right? Holding my position like this for a buy limit and then taking it up. All right, first position is a 1 to 10, risking $1 to make $10. All right, and we're basically risking 20 pips to make 202 pips. That's ridiculous. All right, guys, but it is possible. All right, when you know how to line it up. The second position, the buy limit, is a 1 to 7. All right, but we're making way more pips than the 1 to 10 because we're getting in at a lower price. All right, and we can also risk a little less, right? Just about the same. So 21 pips here, but then we're getting 237 pips to the top. Dollar CHF, guys, mimics the dollar the most, all right, in terms of positive correlation. So if the dollar is looking bullish from a major demand area after doing a sweep, right, there's also a sweep that was done here on the dollar CHF on the liquidity that was built up behind this falling, wedge, if you will, or falling channel. Okay, so we just swept that, tapped into a demand area, filled that entire imbalance. So guys, it's very possible that we'll get the rise for dollar CHF right out the gate starting the week. Maybe it'll be intensive, or it'll move quicker during Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, but ultimately, guys, it's ready right now. So just take advantage beforehand, and you'll probably end up getting maybe up to this point where we're sweeping liquidity above this trend line. And then, you can think about if you want to stay in from there to have it go all the way up, taking out that previous high. All right. But overall, guys, dollar CHF, very nice for a buy. I am bullish. Okay. Moving over to dollar JPY, same exact thing. Even though the JPY will rise after it falls, as it's falling, it will cause the UJ, right, to rise, right? Because again, the JPY is the counter currency of this dollar JPY pair. So if it is going down, that means the dollar is strong and it should be pushing price up. Guys, we got over 300, almost 400 pips to the upside, and we've gotten everything that we need to succeed, right? Broke the high here, made the new high. All of this was the pullback to our point of interest. We consolidated for the longest time, guys, building engineering liquidity with the trend line. Just swept it here. Again, it's possible that we may go a little deeper, all right, just to get a little more of the liquidity behind this. But for the most part, we did get a bit of a sweep of it. So we may just rise right away, guys. And it's just something you don't want to miss out on because it is prime time, ready to go. All right, bullish on dollar JPY, 300, almost 400 pips on the table. Take advantage. All right, dollar odd. All right, it's a little bit of a mix. Because we're breaking lows, but we just came from this major demand area, and we should continue to rise from what it looks like. But we got to get above this supply area. This is basically engineering liquidity right here below that supply area. All right, giving us a bit of equal highs. All right, if you will. All right, so we can easily go ahead and play, sweep, tap into supply, and then continue dropping, breaking lows, and continue to go down on pound odd. All right, so it's very mixy just at the moment. So we need to sit on our hands and see what price does when it reaches the supply area. Okay, if it starts to reject, we get a nice bearish candle to the downside, then you will want to take a short position from this area, trying to see if you can catch it to this low and possibly lower, because there is liquidity behind all of these equal lows. So we may, again, sweep this liquidity, tap into supply, get bearish pressure, and then go to collect this liquidity. And if you take that position, right, you're looking at over 200 pips just to that point. All right, it did more than 200 pips right here, and well, pretty much 200, right? And that did it in 12 hours. All right, on the 7th of August. Okay, so how about that? Just a month ago, it did 200 pips, right, on the 7th of August, which looks like it was a Thursday at 1 p.m. All right, but again, who knows? Maybe it'll be Thursday again by the time we're up at the supply area, and then it'll drop that 200 pips, coming back down within 12 hours, guys. All right, 200 pips on the standard lot. That's 2 bands in 12 hours. Not even 24 hours, you made 2 bands. All right, I think that's worth the money. All right, and the opportunity, or the cojones, all right, to try to jump into Forex and figure this stuff out. Right, it's just worth it, guys. All right, bearish, all right, on pound odd overall, even though it could easily turn bullish if we break above supply. So again, just a bit tricky. Gotta be patient, wait it out, and let price show you its hand. See what it does, and if it does what you need it to, pull the trigger and make your money. All right, moving over to pound CAD. All right, and so we got our break here. We made the new high, made a triple top, right? Broke the neckline of that triple top, fell significantly. All right, so all of that was textbook, right? 224 pips in about 7 days from that break of the equal lows of this triple top. But now we're starting to pull, we're starting to rise up, right? So we did reach our point of interest just halfway within this fair value gap to the left, but we did not get that demand area tapped into. All right, so that is still unmitigated demand, which is still in high demand for possibility of it coming back to this area and then possibly rising from there. So what I'm expecting is we're probably going to get a sweep of these equal highs, all right, before we get the drop to start pulling down, eating away at the imbalance, coming to demand. There's more imbalance, okay, and then obviously unmitigated demand. So we can get all of this on the way down on pound CAD, right? But you just have to understand how to time that, all right? And it'll most likely show its face after it sweeps, and then you're basically looking for candle close back below this red line, right, with the body of the candle closing back below it, to let you know that, okay, that was all just a false break, and it was to sweep liquidity to the left, right, on that triple top. So now it has what it needs. It has the fuel to push the market down, all right, using our money. All right, guys. So that's where the banks will place their trade, and I'll be placing it with them from the high, looking or aiming to seek out liquidity, right, in the form of imbalance, all right, to the downside. So yes, we could keep rising, right? Just you never know, right? But like I'm saying, if it shows you that it just is doing a sweep and rejects this high and starts to come back down, then you know that it was just manipulation. To take all the people who shorted from this area, right, to take them out, get their money, and then just push it right in the direction that you expected it to go in, right? So we'll see, but definitely more bearish on pound CAD as we got a nice rise up over the past week, right? So now we're heading to resistance and to very high points that we previously dropped from. All right, that's the name of the game. Looking left is just looking in the past to see what it may possibly do in the future when it gets to that same area. All right, so again, just gave you guys a gem. Make sure you tap in. All right, hit that like and subscribe button for your boy. All right, but pound CAD, I am expecting the drop on that, guys, and we're talking 300 to 400 pips possibly on that. All right, moving over to pound CHF, and it looks like it's ready to fall, right? But it has not swept this liquidity, and it has not tapped into the supply. I'm very wary of that, so I would be expecting pound CHF to sweep liquidity, tap into supply, and then give us the drop, guys. So watch out for that potential sweep, right? But who knows? It could just drop right now, do this, and then maybe go back up to sweep it at that point, right? It's tricky, okay? But knowing that we're not at a key point of interest, right? You don't want to just buy or sell right here, okay? The name of the game is you buy high, right? You sell high and you buy low. So we need price in these areas to look for our buying and our selling entries for a trade. All right, that's what it's all about. Again, hope I'm getting you guys right. If you just listen, promise you'll learn something. All right, so over to so I'm bearish on pound CHF, but I do need to see that sweep first before I sell it. But if I just get the drop, then I'll be bullish on it from this demand area, because again, we were breaking highs, right? Broke the high, made a new high. All this is the pullback to the point of interest, the demand. So from here, guys, we should take a major rise where we'll definitely sweep the liquidity that sits here below supply. All right, guys, and that'll be a great position. But my team already caught over 100 pips on pound CHF from last week. So, we'll lock in profits or close out the trade and then just try to make it do what it do. We can leave it open because, again, like I mentioned, it may just drop, right? But these pound pairs, guys, are giving it great opportunities, just like the majors. But you got to be able to, tell yourself you're going to take advantage of it and not just, sit on the sideline and watch it pass you by. All right. But bearish, and bullish, okay, on pound CHF. But I would like to sell it from the high or buy it from the low. So I just got to see how it goes first. All right. Moving over to pound JPY. So again, we broke the high. We made the new high. Pull back right to this key point of interest, this demand area. Engineered liquidity with these equal lows and just been consolidating ever since. So it's been really hard to get a grip on what GJ is going to do. But now I see a bit of a trend line that has been broken with a massive, well, not a massive, but with a bearish engulfing candle right here on this candle that you see coming from supply. So with that, guys, a break of the trend line, bearish engulfing candle to the downside, knowing that the JPY will fall a little bit, right, to tap into demand, right? So that'll cause GJ to rise a little bit. But once the JPY index is in the demand area and it rises, it will cause GJ to fall. So I'm saying all that to say that I'm bearish on GJ, guys. But I will be looking out for that temporary rise up or push up before it drops, okay? And again, I'm using Fibonacci to kind of give me a better grip on that. So if we look at it on the 1 hour time frame, right, we can see that we clearly have a high here and we have a low here. So Fibonacci says here's where we most likely will get to, which coincides with a fair value gap. All right, guys, so I may be looking to take my sell opportunity from that fair value gap to take GJ on down to the ground, right? So I have a few points that I can aim for. This low, that'll be 75 pips. Maybe the low to the left over here below it, that's 94. Maybe this low, okay, coming down a little more, right? That's 111. All right, angel numbers, okay? But with that, right, that's more than enough to really rock and roll. But you can see that liquidity is sitting behind these equal lows. So guys, we can really get from this fair value gap down to there over 150 pips. And then what if it just decides to keep going to this demand area? You're looking at well over 300 to 400 pips on GJ, guys. I'm bearish, all right? Over the pound New Zealand, and we broke the high right here, right? Made the new high. All of this pulling back, right, to our demand area, mitigated it nicely, guys. This is picture perfect. And again, I called this out for my team when we were here, all right? So we saw nothing but profit, 167 pips in 13 hours, guys, all right? Again, on a standard lot, that's $1,700 in less than 24 hours, right? We've since pulled back, right, to, you know, people taking profit, other, you know, factors that just cause price to drop, right? And now we're tapped into another demand area, which is right here. Okay. All right, boom. So now we may have an opportunity to place another position at this demand area, all right, with our stop right below it or below any one of these previous lows, just to be on the safe side, okay? And then we'll get another rise up on pound New Zealand. Guys, 300 to 400 pips loaded up on this, guys. Don't miss out. All right, it's just right here ready for you to go. All right, buying it low would be way better, but you may have an opportunity to buy it from here, and just make sure that your stop is below this, right? And don't put too much hot sauce on the lot size, right? Make it something that you can handle and you can survive. That way your emotions aren't on a roller coaster, and you'll be able to breathe as price goes against you, knowing that it's just pebbles in the ocean if you so happen to lose it. But the chart technically is telling you that it wants to rise and that it will rise. So it's just going to be a matter of time and seeing how patient you are to let that play out, or if you're going to let your emotions get the best of you when you see it falling, and then you take yourself out of it because you believe, right? It hasn't shown you, but you believe that it's going to drop. Therefore, you hop out and you see that it reverses and goes in your direction, and you're cursing any and everyone out at that moment except yourself. All right, let's not make it one of those numbers. All right, let's take advantage. Bullish on pound New Zealand. All right, guys, over to silver. All right, silver and gold definitely have been rising. You know, there's a lot going on that basically devaluates the dollar. All right, everybody's waking up. We know what time it is. It's worthless, it's useless, everything else in between. So, you know, showing this is devaluation more and more as we go, you know, throughout our daily lives. Therefore, you know, the safe havens, right, like gold and silver and our commodities have been rising like crazy. All right, but just looking at this bit of structure here, all right, we did break a high, made a new high, and since then we've kind of pulled back, but we haven't really, you know, really broken this low. I mean, we did break it, but it's respecting that area, and it's since then shot up. All right, so it's very hard to really tell what's going on in this area for silver, but for the time being, it is consolidating. Typically, consolidation will happen before a potential change in the trend. All right, but it's not all the time. It may be a continuation of the trend, right? It just that consolidation may represent just a pause, right, in the uptrend, and then the uptrend may continue, right? But most of the time, the way it's represented is the indication that, you know, we may be finished with the up move that, you know, has been happening with silver, and that we may now begin to reverse and go down. Again, the correlation with the dollar in these commodities is that if the dollar rises, the commodities fall, right? So again, if we get that to happen this week, then we can see potential of silver dropping. All right, guys, but you know, just be careful and you know, don't rush it, right? If you are going to sell silver, make sure you're selling it from a high, preferably after it has swept the highs, right? Then, you know, look for a position to go ahead and take it on down from there, right? But definitely don't sell it here, right? Don't let it go low and break out of consolidation and then sell it here, because each one of these you're selling at the low right? Well, this is higher than that, but what I'm saying is that you're selling it. If you're selling it here, you're selling it in the middle of consolidation. That's just bad, right? If you're selling it here, you're selling it when price is going low, right? If you were going to really sell it, you should have sold it right from one of these high points, because if you look at it, ever since they got here, they just kept dropping, right? That's the name of the game. So again, be careful where you want to sell silver from, but just know that there's a potential opportunity for it to start going bearish. How would I know, Bain? Easy, because price will break out of consolidation like it did here with this kind of candle, and then from there there's just more patience, okay? Because even though it's broken there, there's demand sitting right here that it may respect and continue to rise. So you're looking for ultimately the breakout of consolidation, the retest to some key point of interest from where the break initiated, and then more bears showing up. If you get that, guys, you can already see, with this markup, how it's going to begin the reversal process on silver, right? To where we start breaking lows, repeating the process, breaking lows all the way down until we collect every bit of liquidity sitting behind the swing, sitting behind the trend line, you name it, right? We're going to aim it and get it, all right? So here we go, guys, bearish on silver if we get that breakout to the downside outside of consolidation. All right, over to gold, and again, gold just won't stop, can't stop, won't stop rising. All right, guys, has bearish potential, all right, but we're already sitting in the demand area that we may rise from. So you just got to really be careful, right? I would like to see gold get down to this demand level and potentially buy it, but we have a nice trend line that liquidity sits behind. So if we see gold break below this particular low here, and it will probably look better on the 15-minute, all right, there you can see it more more in detail, right? That if we break below there, we will have a change of character. So then we'll be looking for price to pull back to a key point of interest, and then we'll be looking to take the sell. Again, you can take it now if you want, but this is, still risky as market structure is still bullish. That's why seeing the confirmation where it changes from up to down is, more in your favor for taking that sell, where we can definitely sweep everything behind this trend line. And I'm talking, 147 pips on, or 147 points on gold, which is over 1,000 pips, guys. It's just absolutely ridiculous. Oh, actually over 100 pips, my bad. So every dollar is 10. So you guys do the math, right? It's a lot of points, a lot of pips, all right? And you're going to get paid. And when that's just aiming for this very swing low here behind this trend line, you don't even have to go for all of that. You can just drop it right to demand. And there it is, 36-point move. So 360 pips on gold, just that simple. All right, guys, bearish on gold if we break below the change of character. But if not, guys, it is still bullish. All right, so don't forget that. All right, moving over to natural gas. And natural gas looks like it's ready to blast off, all right, as we had a nice falling wedge that we broke out of, made perfect uptrend market structure, just broke this high, made triple top, which is, again, another area of liquidity, all right, that we can go and get. So I definitely believe that we're going to push down into demand, and then we're going to go and sweep that liquidity, getting above this high, potentially aiming for the equal highs here on on natural gas. So I'm very, very bullish on natural gas, guys, looking to take advantage of exactly what I explained. All right, moving over to crude oil, and man, oh man, oh man. All right, looks like, we've gotten a major sweep on it to the downside, breaking below these equal lows. So we may get another little push down to demand to, fill in this imbalance and just obviously tap into demand before rising. I know, it's been falling, and I'm still bullish. It's just because we're so close. So it will pay off eventually. If you've been slapped around by oil, you don't have to continue getting slapped around, right? It's your prerogative, but I'm okay with the hits. So I will be still bullish on oil, just looking to catch it lower if possible. But if we happen to get above this old demand area that's now acting as resistance. If we happen to break above that, guys, I'm definitely going to buy with my stop below here, and I'll be aiming either for this high, right, or preferably this one, guys. All right, and that's on oil. So I will be pretty much making either 200 pips or 700 pips on oil this week. All right, so don't sleep. I'm bullish still. All right, moving over to SPY, guys. Once again, SPY is ready to die. You guys see this massive bearish candle, right? But let's see if we can tell what the story reads. This was a high. We broke that high. We're starting to pull back to this area of demand. So because of that, guys, we can try to take advantage of any selling opportunities that are presented to us. All right, so breaking it down to the 1 hour time frame, and now you guys can see detail in the structure, right, where you see that this was once a low that pushed up and broke this high. Therefore, this is where we had our change of character, officially letting us know that we're now getting into the downtrend structure that makes up the pullback. All right, so what we want to see is price will play around, engineer some liquidity, probably Monday and Tuesday because there's no news. All right, it'll push up a little more, do all of this, but it won't quite tap into supply. So from there, it'll start pushing down, and you think it's time to sell. But no, they've engineered liquidity here and they've engineered liquidity here, which is sitting right below the supply area. So what they're going to do, entice you to believe that they're going to go down and continue going down. But what they're really going to do is they're just going to push it down a little bit, and then they're going to do the sweep. And from here is where you should have been always looking to take your sell from, not from any one of these areas where price has not pushed back to your supply area yet. All right, guys, trying to give it to you. Just pick it up. Okay, so take it out my hand, either one, right? But from this area is where I'll be looking to short SPY and have it push all the way down, sweeping these equal lows and tapping into demand. All right, for potentially, all right, let's see, 122 points, guys. Don't sleep on the beat with SPY for the die. All right, dropping and bearish on SPY just after it rises. So be mindful of that, wait for it, and then do what you got to do, or just set your sell limit, order here, stop above the high, take profit at demand, and watch what it does. All right, so here now over to NAS. All right, and same exact thing, guys. We broke this high, made this new high, all the pullback all the way down to this key point of interest, made the double top or the double bottom or equal lows, to where we tried to come and sweep it again here, but we didn't quite sweep it. All right, maybe this we swept, but we really didn't sweep this low. Regardless, this was the pullback, and now we started to rise, which it should have done from this key point of interest, because that's what it told us. Once it continues rising, it just has to do its pullback first before it starts to rise. And then when it started to rise, what happened was we did not get above this high, right? But there was definitely engineered liquidity behind this trend line. Therefore, as we started to push down, this point also engineered liquidity right behind it. So once we got to these equal lows, right, that were acting as a support area, we rejected it and we started shooting up once again to now take out liquidity behind this swing, push up even more, and take out liquidity behind this trend line. So guys, from there, we've gotten a massive bearish candle, right? That's tapped into demand. So again, we are expecting NAS to continue to rise, but all in this drop, you see a change of character, all right, beginning, which is the sign of a beginning of a possible reversal. So as we get to the supply area, guys, we want to take our chances of selling, okay? And with that, guys, we have over 800 points on the table for NAS. So with all that being said, I'm bearish, guys. All right, looking for a major payday come Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, or Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, because of CPI, PPI, probably unemployment and other things of that nature. All right, guys, but bearish on NAS. All right, over to US 30, last but not least. And again, same old same, right? Broke the high, made the new high, started to pull back, never got to the demand area, engineered liquidity, took off, engineered more liquidity here, finally swept this liquidity, created more liquidity, all right, before tapping into demand. So again, this liquidity was created but never swept, right? So we push off, right, getting people to think that we're going to go and just continue going higher, but we just did a sweep of liquidity of these equal highs and then the previous high. We swept that, and now right from doing that, how ironic, we get this massive bearish candle, guys. This happened on Friday at 9 a.m. I don't remember if there was news on that day, but most likely, all right, and 468 points to the downside just that quick, right? That also gave us a change of character, breaking this low, all right, which from the past pushed up and broke above this high, right? So that was a strong low, but we just broke it, right? So now it's telling us that we may definitely get bearish on US 30, okay? This will be our supply area, all right? This is where price initiated, that push down to break this low, giving us a change of character where we can start to look for ourselves. But price is, in the middle of nowhere. It's not at any of our key points of interest. So we simply need to wait for it to push up to that, guys. And from here, it'll go anywhere in here, right? So just be mindful of that. If you want to just have your sell limits at the very top, cool, right? No, it may not get activated, right? But if you put a limit order here, it's definitely probably going to get activated. And then just make sure your stop is above here. Guys, it'll play around, do all its thing, but then eventually, probably Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, it will give us that drop, aiming to sweep the liquidity that was engineered down at these lows. And when we do the math, guys, we're talking, all right, over 840 points on US 30. So you got 800 plus on NAS, right? And you also have 800 plus possibility on US 30, right, guys? I'm not the sharpest in the knife, right? But I think I can figure out that that's worth it, all right? So again, that's what we got for the week. You know what I'm saying? Football's back and all of that. Still go Dolphins, right? Fans up. Win and loss. We'll be there, right? But let's get a championship or something. I mean, it's about time. But either way, hope your team wins and all that good stuff. But in the meantime, in between time, y'all know what it is. It's your boy. Peace.
Want to get money? Want to get paid? That's Forex. Like a sensei, then you know you got to come and swing my way. And if you want to fast forward, hit replay.